UFOs. Are they real? What does your government do about them? My name's Jay with the Ground Rooster Ranch YouTube channel, and I'm a retired police officer. In this video, we're going to talk about what I personally experienced, how I dealt with it, what I found out, and the difference between UFOs and aliens. Stick around. You're probably watching the news media, and maybe you're a UFO fanatic and you like to look into conspiracy theories. I don't like conspiracy theories. I think that there's a factual explanation for everything. And so I'm going to try and stay away from talking about a whole lot of nonsense. I'm going to talk about some facts, some things we know to be true, and just give my perspective as a retired police officer who's actually dealt with UFO complaints. So I'm going to go back to 2009. I was a RCMP officer in British Columbia. I received a complaint about a ball of light that had gone through the air, changed direction, and continued on. And it made 90-degree angles. Coincidentally, I was sitting in my police cruiser on that night, and I actually saw it. I didn't self-report because it's been my understanding and my belief that this doesn't exist. It's not a tangible, factual thing that I can reach out and touch in any way. I can't measure it. I can just say maybe it was a reflection off a car pulling in behind me off the glass in my windshield. A lot of different things go through my head, so I wrote it off quickly and easily in my head when I saw it. But then we get the complaint for it, which means someone else saw the same thing I did. At the time, we had a computer system. This is before cell phones really picked up. This is before Facebook really took a grasp of anything. This is before globalization and everything got connected to everyone else in the world, and it was really confusing. We were still texting at that time by pushing the button 3 times in order to make a C by pushing 1. A lot of the police officers that I worked with were very senior, and they had 30 plus years experience, especially over north of 25. So there was not a whole lot of technological development and a lot of resistance to technology at the time to any advances in policing. So I was a natural. I go through, and the computer system we had, the file comes in. I call the person who made the complaint, verify some information with them. Like, okay, did anything go on that you can explain to me that's any different? What happened? They tell me their story. It's all the same. I say, yeah, well, I kind of saw the same thing. We don't know what it is. If I hear anything, I'll let you know. I go and I write it off. No one else called. There's 90,000, 100,000, 110,000 people in town maybe at that time. No one else called. Well, we have 229 characters in order to write that file off with. And I don't mean like characters like emojis. I mean each individual letter and letter block inside of a sentence is considered a character. And I had 229 spaces in order to write off. We use shorthand in order to do this. I wrote it off in 229 characters or less. And I sent the file, and it got kicked back. And so I go in to see my sergeant at the time, and I say, well, this is hooey. What's going on? Why do I have this file back? Because we were a high demand, high file load office. Why do I have science fiction back to do more work? He's like, well, there's actually policy on this. And so what I ended up having to do was I ended up having to call the airport, verify with air traffic control that there was nothing or that there was something on radar at the time of the complaint. It was actually quite easy because I saw it myself. And I was able to say within 2 minutes of the window where it was, and they sit there and they watch their radar the entire time. So I get a hold of them. They said they didn't see anything. All right, that's fine. And so I do a report up, and I have to follow a few channels. I have to check a few things, check into the people, check into any history of these reports in the area, or if there's anything going on. And then I go back, and I'm following this policy, and then I have to write it up, and then I have to give it a special designation. And I go back and I ask, I said, why is this designated this way? Well, we send it off to NORAD. NORAD, if you don't know, is a zone in the Arctic Circle where we have radio transmitters that pick up anything that's coming in through our airspace as a form of air defense. Think of the Cold War era when ICBMs were a big threat for nuclear war. That's what this defense network is. It's an overlapping military satellite, ground satellite that monitors our airspace. So it goes off to them. So you can automatically see that the government actually has a procedure for unidentified flying objects. Now, what I know is that the actual unidentified flying objects are not classified as aliens. They are classified only as unidentified flying objects. They don't see it as this is an alien invasion, this is something alien to us. The problem is in my report is that we both saw the same thing. We both saw the light go here, here, and then here. And nothing that I know of moves at a not extremely high rate of speed, depending how far away it was, I don't know. But I'd never seen anything move like that through the air. I had experience with helicopters because I worked prior to that at a resort, and I've seen lots of helicopters take off and land from different perspectives. We did helicopter tours. I'd worked with the police force with their helicopter and ridden the helicopter. I had later on in life, I spent a lot of time at an airport while working for the police force and seen a lot of different aircraft take off, and I'd never seen any semblance of anything that could actually do this Z pattern completely vertical from my perspective two-dimensionally on the ground. So what it actually was, and it was interesting that someone else on another part of town actually saw it, and we got the report, and I got to investigate it, and I saw it. It was just interesting. And so I became a little bit interested in this, and so I followed up with where does it go? And what ends up happening is that those investigational files end up being classified. Normally, as a police officer, you have a security classification as this. I collect the information, it goes into the computer system, and then that's it. Typically, I can re-access that information if need be. However, in this case, this information goes in, and then it gets classified, not just to this level, but it actually goes up maybe even higher. And I can no longer get into it. It's called ghosting a file. It's restricted. It's gone out of my classification, and Lord knows where. I asked where it went. They said no right. And it would be the military, and then it was closed down. So your police, the police that I worked with at the time, do have procedures in dealing with UFOs. They're very explicit and specific as what actions are required as a minimum, but they're very fact-based. One thing that troubles me right now is that since that time, you're talking almost 20 years ago, our technology has advanced to the point where everyone has their own independent camera that is able to pick up things and stuff that's going on around them. We don't see near as much as you would think. But what I do know is that the classification of this information is usually based on national security. So if you're not seeing it from the Canadian counterparts, it doesn't mean it doesn't exist. It means that it's automatically from the ground, from what I saw, it's classified at such a high level that even though I saw it, I can't get back into it. Which seems incredible, but it is. That's the way it is as being part of the government system. Is that troubling? It should. I mean, I'm not troubled by that. There's a much larger picture that my experience may not see. But if we look at current technology and what we're learning as time goes on, there's been so many incredible advancements that are partisan to everybody. It's not politically based. You look at the James Webb Telescope. You take a grain of sand, you hold it out in front of your face, and you hold it out at arm's length. James Webb took a picture the size of a grain of sand with a telescope, and within that picture from outer space, they found 7,000 complete galaxies and a few stars, individual stars. A grain of sand holding 7,000 of anything is definitely hard to comprehend. And I think that if we're serious about what we're trying to accomplish as a society and as people, you'll take a second to step back and say, you know what? If a few different people, a bunch of different people have the wherewithal to look up while they're walking instead of down at their feet, you'll come to understand there's probably a lot we're missing. If we're missing 7,000 galaxies in a grain of sand sized pitcher, what else are we missing? We just need the technology to, or the wherewithal to get there. Now, I never saw anything positive or negative or anything come of that situation. I did experience it. I did see it. I don't know what it was. I'm talking about, I did see a UFO. I did not see aliens. There's a difference. There is a major difference in what the context of that conversation is. And if you can't accept that, you need to go back and identify some sort of dictionary term that you can accept to understand that those are two different things. And I'm going to challenge your perception on aliens, because if we look at ourselves in the scope and context of the entire universe and how big we actually are compared to how big we are within the scope of our planets within our own system that we are factually know exist. You look at the size of Earth, and if you look at the size of Jupiter, if you say anything that lived on Jupiter would be the same size comparable to Earth, you'd be crazy, because the big red spot on Jupiter is bigger than Earth itself, and that's just a storm. So when we look at it, you could have, if you did have an actual alien influence that was coming in external to our Earth, planet, world, universe, solar system, galaxy, whatever you want to have it. It is possible that they could be microbial in size with advanced technology, or they could be so astronomically big or out of phase that we wouldn't comprehend it. Just like there's so many things we don't comprehend now. So I want you to keep an open mind about all this stuff. I've never verified or seen anything. I just want you to know that your actual government does have a process to deal with this, and there is information there. It's just that even if you witnessed it and put the information in, wasn't still allowed to get it. That's how strict it is. If you have any questions or comments about anything that you've experienced that has fallen on the wayside or deaf ears, let me know. I've got lots of policing stories. Some of them are outrageous, some of them are fairly incredible, and some of them are just straight out of science fiction, or you could make a novel or a movie out of it, because it's incredible, some of the stuff that I've had the chance to experience over the years. This is one of those things where I think that it would benefit everyone to pay attention to. We have artificial intelligence coming up. And every time we've had a major technological advance such as this, a credible technological advance that was able to allow us to understand something that a single brain was not able to understand, we made leaps and bounds. And all of the malarkey from the 1940s and 50s, where you say that can't possibly be real, all the progress that we're pushing for through gender equality, and our species equality right now, is going to need something in the future to look to when all that comes to parity. Individual ideas are becoming less important than the fact that things are actually coming to fruition about artificial intelligence. You have independent contractors who have more satellites in orbit than most of the governments in the world. Think about that. There's entire governments in the world that don't have the ability to have satellite technology. And then an independent contractor has the ability to do things like land a rocket on a moving platform. Where will you be in 30 years from now? And the things that you're saying are crazy now, what are they going to be in 30 years? Are they facts? Are they things that you just don't want to understand, or are you just closed-minded? I've seen things that I don't understand, and no matter what anyone says, they can't take that experience from me. And I've had other people see the same thing, which validated it in my mind, because we have no way of talking to each other. At the time, most people hate police, so there's no reason for them to actually cooperate with anything that I would ever have to say and share as an experience. So it's an interesting function of our society. I'm surprised there's not more. But again, if you think about what you're likely doing right now, you're likely standing there looking at your phone if you're watching this. You're not looking. Up there. Keep that in mind. Try to be less distracted. Keep your eye on the skies. And that's right. Keep everybody accountable. Pay attention. I look forward to your comments. Please hit the subscribe button if you like this content. I have a lot of stories, a lot of different experiences that I can share about being a police officer for nearly 2 decades. And I'm a bit of a country hack right now, but I've been a little bit of everywhere. And if you have any, I'm not going to give any legal advice. I can just share some experiences and different things that I can do. I'm going to give my opinion and from my experiences. And if you like that content, we can start focusing on that a little bit more and maybe deal with a bunch of the questions and different things that went on. Anybody who's critical of my choice of profession, well, you know what? I'm just not going to address you, because I had a very wonderful career. I helped so many people. And just because some people are disappointed that the services they expect are not what the police give them, is nothing new. It's the same as any service-based business. Police officers as trades are very specifically trained for what they do in a very dynamic environment. And if you're willing to take on the task of criticizing a individual police officer for his actions, you have to remember that that's what they were physically trained to do. So you're not just criticizing the police officer, you're criticizing the entire system that creates that police officer and makes them do the job of being the big parent to the parents that are doing things wrong, or the adults. I had a very hard time initially arresting someone who was older than me, because I was raised to respect people in my senior. I had a very hard time doing that. When I realized that the behavior that comes with having to arrest someone is not restricted to people who are children, your soul breaks a little bit. It really does. And it's one of those things where you build up a hardness over the years to be able to go through things factually as a police officer. And there's so much more to it. We could talk about it and the origins of where law comes from and different things. Gather your facts, have them ready. Let's talk about it. If you think this is something that you would like to enjoy, please comment. I can't say that enough. We're working on developing an entire YouTube series for the future. If this is one of the threads that you'd like to see happen, and we talk about having very honest and very blunt conversation about policing. I policed in 4 different places, 3 different provinces, and probably a half dozen countries around the world. There's so much to talk about, so much culturally involved in the law of our different areas and allies across the world. There's so much there that I think we can have a very positive conversation about what you can do as a person. And remember that everyone who's trying to help you out is also human, and mistakes happen. And things are never perfect, despite the system being constructed to address and save everybody. You just can't. And that is a blunt truth. If you look forward to that sort of thing, let me know. UFOs. Are they real? Certainly. Aliens? I don't know. Somebody knows. You know. and you have access to those files.